So whether you are a tube amp analog snob or a digital modeling user, the HX Stomp has something that you can benefit from no matter what your setup is, who you are, or what you play. It's probably the most universal Swiss Army knife of a piece of gear that I've ever owned and that I think we're ever going to see for a long time. It's really tough to beat this thing. It does a ton of different things and does them all really well. Not just like a jack of all trades, master of none, but like this thing really does anything I need it to do and does all of it really well. So I'm going to get into a couple of reasons why I think you need one and some of my favorite features of the HX Stomp. The first one is as a regular old pedal. So if you're a tube amp user that just has a pedal board, like a real pedal board, this thing can do anything you want it to do. It's got a whole range of effects. It's got all the different preamps, pedals, delays, reverbs, modulation effects. It's got pretty much anything you'd ever need. I personally have this on my real board, or as I call it. The reason I like to keep this on my board as opposed to like an M9 or an HX Effects is because of the size. You look at how small this thing is. It takes up literally no room, and you can get up to 6 effects at the same time currently. And by the end of the year, I'm sure that whenever this update comes out, when this updates to 3.0, you're going to be allowed to have 8 blocks simultaneously in this. So you can just get like a cheap foot controller, a foot switch to control the extra stomps, and you have 8 pedals right here within this. So you have your delays, reverbs, etc., all that stuff in a small footprint. I mean, there's some, like a Klon is like the size of this thing. It's so small, it's so light, it doesn't take up nearly as much room as an HX Effects or an M9. So if you are a pedal board user, this thing fits right on there and does a huge variety of things that you can't get from most pedals in this size range. The second reason I wanted to talk about is having this as an entire backup rig. So on my real board where I have my real stuff, I actually have 2 of these. I have this one that stays on my desk all the time, we're going to talk about later. And I have one on my full pedal board that stays, ready to go for sessions or for gigs, whatever I need it for. But the reason that this is super important is that it can go direct to front of house with the regular output. So you don't really need anything extra to go to front of house. These are actually balanced 1/4 inch outputs on the back side here. Take a look. So what that means is you can take this 1/4 inch output and go literally right to front of house. So if you have your real pedal board and your amplifier goes down or explodes, you could just plug this in, pull up an amp model that's similar to what you had, because it's definitely going to be in there. Go straight to the output. If you want to use a DI box, you can, but you really don't need to. You could take this output, go direct to front of house, and you have a full backup rig within this little thing. Very important. The next reason is this is a recording interface, which means that you can record your guitars into your DAW, into your computer with just this little box. You don't need your Focusrite, you don't need your Apollo. You could just take this through the USB jack right into your computer. You could find it as an interface in your DAW and you're good to go. There's so many different options with this. You can record a affected signal. You can also record a dry signal. So the USB outputs on this has a couple of different, I think there's 6 on the HX Stomp. I'm not 100% sure, but 2 of them are full DI dry signals. So you can reamp later using like HX Helix Native or any other plugins you may have. So you can have a full recorded amp and pedal sound going into your DAW and simultaneously record a DI track of just your guitar plugged straight into the interface for reamping later. Huge, insane options. I actually take my extra one with me when we tour so that I can make videos and I can practice while we're on tour and we're in hotels. And I have this whole rig right here. I can plug it straight into my laptop and record myself and make videos about it. I can fly in sessions or demo work, and I could do it with great tone and not have to sacrifice anything by using this. It also fits in my suitcase, which is very important being this size. This thing fits in a gig bag. You can just throw it in anywhere, throw it in a backpack, throw it in your suitcase, and you have a full recording interface anywhere you go. Really helpful, really comes in handy. So I wanted to touch again on the size and portability of this. I know I just talked about, throwing it in a suitcase and stuff and how easy that is, but I wanted to just compare this because, like I said, I was a really big M9 user and a lot of people have the M9 or the HX Effects and they're, on their pedal boards and they take up a lot more room than this, but The thing about the M9 and the HX effects is I only find myself using a couple of effects at a time. So like 1 or 2 effects, maybe 3. And I don't, if I remember correctly, I don't even think the M9 can do more than 3 effects, but this can, and this can do all 6 at the same time, or when it goes up to 8 blocks, it'll be up to all 8 until you run out of DSP. So just the amount of tone per square inch of this, if you want to call it that, is seriously unreal. And again, I can't stress enough the size and portability of this, how light it is, easy to travel, and how little space it takes up on your board for such great sounds. My favorite part of making a sound or making a tone using the HX Stomp is the parallel effects. So what you can do within the HX Stomp or in your in the HX Edit, the desktop editor that you could download with it, you can drag your effects into a separate path. And this is where the HX Stomp takes the cake for me versus the Pod Go, because the Pod Go can't do parallel effects. I really like the ability to mix in my wet and affected signal with my dry signal. I like to be in control of that. With the regular Helix path, or Pod Go without the parallel path, you can control the mixes of the delay and reverbs, but you can't control a collective mix of your wet effects. So I like to drop my delays and reverbs into a separate parallel path, drag it down, make it super, super washy and super wet, and then I can blend that in because you have a mixer where that parallel path merges, and you can literally mix yourself as if you sent 2 signals to a mixing desk or to a front of house console. And, just like they would, if you're in a console, you're going to mix in how much dry signal, how much wet signal. You could do that right in your signal chain and then send that to front of house or to your recording desk, whatever the heck else you're doing with it. So the parallel effects is something that really, really, I feel like separates this thing for me and makes it sound so much better. The transient note popping through is something that I really, really like doing the parallel effect thing, because sometimes when you put the mixes on the reverbs and the delays, the signal gets a little bit lost and a little bit dulled down. But when you have that dry, unaffected signal coming through on that first path, it really makes a big difference in how the notes punch and come through. And the bonus tip? No, we're not doing tips. And the bonus reason that you need an HX Stomp is the constant updates from Line 6. I think they posted a video from Eric Klein, the creator of Helix, about how many amps and effects have been added since the launch of the HX brand. And there's like hundreds of effects and amps that are constantly added. So it feels like every 4 or so months or something like that, 4, 5, 6 months, we get a fresh update with new effects, new amp models, and new features. And it just keeps building on itself. I feel like the HX Stomp kind of set a tone for digital modeling that a lot of people are trying to play catch up to and throw in a couple of features to try to one up it and just keep trying to, get their way. But I feel like it's a great thing for modeling to keep continuing to push each other and to get better at it. But I think that Helix and, Line 6 have set the bar and everybody keeps trying to catch up. And then Line 6 throws a huge update in that, again, separates it and just keeps climbing the ladder for the front runner in the digital modeling world, in my opinion. And the effects and the features that they add are all super useful. In this 3.0 update that's coming, changing the stomp from 6 to 8 blocks alone is enormous, because it's a whole nother 2 effects that you could throw in until you run out of DSP. That's huge. On top of that, we're also getting polyphonic pitch shifting, which is something that I see people complain about in the forums since I got my first Helix, and now obviously with the HX Stomp and stuff. So everybody's always like, oh, we need polyphonic. Well, that's coming and we don't have to pay for it. So we already bought the HX Stomp or your Helix, and now you're getting a free update that's adding polyphonic pitch shifting. It's just so cool that they keep updating it and constantly adding more and more features for you that are going to be super useful and things that people want. They have an idea scale on the website that the regular users like you and I go to, write your suggestions, and there's a voting system that Line 6 actually looks at and takes into account when they make these updates. And again, every few months you get a fresh product. You could literally consider it a whole new unit every few months, which I don't think any of the other modeling units are doing or can touch, in my opinion. You get those for what they are, and they pretty much stay the same. So think about that when you're making your choice. So those are my top reasons for wanting an HX Stomp and for telling you that you need an HX Stomp. If I missed any, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next video.